Okay. Before we begin the video, I filmed this video, and I went back and rewatched it, and I do get very heated throughout it, like to the point where I'm yelling at the camera. And I want to apologize because I'm normally not like that on Kid Catholic, right? You guys normally don't see me like that, but if I'm being honest, abortion, like, it is a topic that makes me very emotional, that just angers me, and like I can't help it, you know, like it's abortion. It's not abortion. It's a topic that gets me very emotional, gets me very heated. So I apologize if I'm like too loud for your speakers, but just a fair warning. And like it's just yeah. So anyway, just had to warn you that I get like even way more heated than I expected. So anyway, without further ado, here's the video. Hello everybody, I am Keaton, and this is Kid Catholic Season 8, Episode 15. Now for today's episode specifically, I want to talk about something that's kind of been a hot topic lately and has been brought up again with what's happening in our country right now, and that is the abortion argument. Now, I've made a lot of videos on this, so fair warning, if you're a young kid who watches this, or if you're a parent who watches this with your young kids, because I know I have a lot of those, if your kids do not know about abortion, if they're not exposed to abortion, then I highly recommend you click off of this video and go watch another one of the like 200 Kid Catholic videos. So yeah, so for what I want to do specifically is like the two videos that I've made, like for the pro-life movement, I've reacted to abortion videos. Now this one is going to be a little bit different. This is something that came across my attention, that I came across on the internet, that it was published in September of 2019, but like apparently it's been getting a lot of traction lately. And I've read that like this article has changed people's minds from being pro-life to being pro-choice, which is absolutely terrible and sad. So I want to look at it. It is on bustle.com by Seth Milstein, and it is How to Argue Pro-Choice: 11 Arguments Against Abortion Access Debunked. So basically it's saying like the pro-life arguments, he's debunking heavy quotation marks, and I will put it, and I will debunk the debunkedness, you know what I'm trying to say? Because he debunks it without providing actually any reasoning or logic behind his argument, so this should be, great. So he starts off with saying, common argument number 1. A fetus is a human being, and human beings have the right to life, so abortion is murder. Yes, that is a common argument. It's also not just an argument, it's factual. Also, keep in mind, this is Seth Milstein, a he, but I thought that guys weren't supposed to talk on abortion, so now I'm confused as to how he is, but I'm not. I don't know. Anyway, a fetus is a human being, and human beings have the right to life, so abortion is murder. That is absolutely correct. He rebuttals and says, I'm probably not going to convince you that a fetus isn't alive, as that's basically the most intractable part of this whole debate, so I'll be brief. He literally admits it. He literally says, I'm not going to rebuttal this one. I'm not going to argue against this one. He admits that, he goes, I'm probably not going to convince you that a fetus isn't alive. Like, correct. You're not. Because all of science says that it is. Everything factually, everything that we know about what happens inside the womb says that it is. So he literally admits it. If you're gonna open up a pro-choice article and then literally admit that pro-lifers are right in your first paragraph, that maybe isn't the best way to go. So he rebuttals with like this little stuff that says, a fetus can't survive on its own. It is fully dependent on its mother's body. That is correct. You know what else can't survive on its own? A 2-year-old. A 2-year-old can't survive on its own. A 2-year-old is fully dependent on their mother, parental figure, whatever it might be, right? A 2-year-old has to be fed. A 2-year-old has to be clothed. Without relying on someone else, the 2-year-old will die. So, by your logic, it is perfectly acceptable to kill a 2-year-old if that 2-year-old is not wanted, by your logic, Seth. It also says, even if a fetus is alive, the right to life, put in quotation marks for some reason, doesn't imply a right to use somebody else's body. People have the right to refuse to donate their organs, for example, even if doing so would save somebody else's life. Okay, so first off, he's saying like, well, the baby, this is literally his logic, the baby doesn't have the right to use someone else's body. Like, why, how, where, are you thinking this through, dude? It says, refuse to donate their organs. First off, comparing a baby to an organ is absolutely ridiculous. Like, they are like, the baby has organs, right? Because the baby is a completely separate human being. Second off, The baby is not using someone else's body. Like, okay, so you're implying, because I'm confused, because now you're contradicting yourself with the pro-choice argument. It says, doesn't imply a right to use somebody else's body, but then you also say that the baby doesn't have its own body, that it's relying on the mother, and my body, my choice, as you're saying, right? So now you're contradicting yourself. So I'm confused as to what your stance on the argument is. Okay, the next one, it says, the right to life also doesn't imply a right to live by threatening someone else's life. Bearing children is always a threat to the life of the mother, see below. That is just, I mean, do you know what else is a threat to the life of me? If I were to get in a car, the chance of me getting in a car wreck, that would be a threat to my life. So I am refusing to just go in a car from now on. Like, that's the logic. Like, come on. Like, no, I guarantee you these babies are not being murdered because the mother's life is in danger. Okay, that's not why this is happening. These babies are being murdered for convenience. These babies are being murdered because the mother does not want said baby, cannot handle said baby. And so instead of actually putting them through the foster care system or through abortion, they're saying, oh, I'm just going to end its life instead. And he or she's life instead. That doesn't make any sense, okay? He then goes on, he says, common argument number 2. If a woman is willing to get pregnant, she's knowingly taking the risk of getting pregnant and should be responsible for her actions. That is completely correct. The pro-choice argument. You're asserting that giving birth is the responsible choice in the event of a pregnancy. Well, I mean, I would assume if you have 2 lives and at the end of it you end up with both lives alive, that is the responsible choice. This is what he says. I'd argue that if a mother knows she won't be able to provide for her child, it's actually more responsible to have an abortion. Are you kidding me right now? It's, okay, you know there's a thing called adoption, right? You know there's a thing called foster care, right? And then a pro-choicer could say, oh, well, the foster care system is flawed. So you'd rather just the baby die? I saw this one comment. It was a comment on a video, and someone used that argument. And this guy literally goes, I was in the foster care system. It was much better than dying. It's like, exactly. Like, so you'd rather the baby just die. So nobody is forcing the woman to raise the baby, right? Nobody is doing that. Nobody is saying, yes, you have to take care of this child. You have to birth this child because murder is illegal. It's just as simple as that. I'm all for the choice before getting pregnant, okay? That's where the choice should take place. In cases where it's not a choice, if you know what I mean, that's less than 1% of all abortions, so that's just an invalid argument. But I'm all for the choice before getting pregnant. But then, just like with everything in life, you choose the choice, you don't get to choose the consequences. Okay, getting pregnant is a consequence of that choice that you need to accept, okay? And murdering the baby for convenience is never acceptable. So, there's that. Okay, so, he goes, common argument number 3. But I'm okay with abortions in cases of it not being, you know what I mean? I can't say it on Kid Catholic, but in cases of that less than 1%, right? First off, I do not agree with this at all. I believe that life is better than not life, no matter what the case. Is that less than 1% a tragedy that happened? Absolutely. But the baby should not be punished for something that the baby did not do. So he says the pro-choice argument, why only in those cases? This one, like, I'm really not one to rebuttal because, like, the pro-choice, this is for going against people who are okay with it in cases of that less than 1%, which I am not. So I'm going to move on to common argument number 4. Yeah. We're skipping that one. Common argument number 5. Adoption is a viable alternative to abortion. Correct, because guess what? In adoption, the baby gets to live. Wow, that's such a genius idea. I know that it's kind of hard for some people to comprehend that, but, I mean, it just sounds amazing, doesn't it? Seth decides to rebuttal that, saying, this implies that the only reason a woman would want to get an abortion is to avoid raising a child, and that isn't the case. That literally is the case, though. Like, if you're saying that that's not the case, then what other reason is there to get an abortion? He says, depending on the circumstances, the mere act of having a child in a hospital can cost between $3,000 and $37,000 in the United States. Giving birth is dangerous, too. Okay, well, let's start off with the cost thing. That is correct. A lot of things are expensive. Once again, that's why you have to live with the consequences. The choice was there beforehand. The consequences are acting, and if that's getting to you, that's terrible. And yes, you should be helped, but not while destroying another innocent life in the process, right? Because I don't know about y'all, but when you have a situation, I like to, at the end of the situation, make sure that everybody involved is alive, instead of committing mass genocide and making it legal across the whole U.S. He then continues by saying, giving birth is dangerous too. In the United States, pregnancy complications are the 6th most common cause of death for women between the ages of 20 and 34. Correct. That is specifically, when you actually look at that statistic, that is specifically women with not the correct medical care. And again, if you cannot afford the medical care, then a woman should have been prepared for that before, right before the pregnancy, when she had the choice then. Now she has to live up with the consequences, right? So I'm not saying that, oh, you should just be ready to die. Absolutely not. You deserve all the medical attention, just as the baby, because killing another innocent life is never okay, okay? He then continues, even before birth, there are costs to pregnancy. In addition, the whole carrying another human being around in your stomach for 9 months thing, many women, particularly teens, are shunned and shamed for their pregnancies. Okay, here's the deal. Yes, that's okay. That's not good that women feel shamed, and that they just feel horrible, because making someone feel horrible is never okay. But what you're saying is, because someone thinks that carrying out a pregnancy is too hard, and yes, it is a very difficult thing to do, right? That just, okay, we're gonna end that by killing the baby, and that'll just be okay. Like, no, all of these arguments just prove the pro-life argument, that it's for the sake of convenience. 99% of abortions are for the sake of convenience. Murder for the sake of convenience, which isn't acceptable. You're just proving my point, Seth. Thanks for the help. Common argument number 6, when abortion is legal, women just use it as a form well, let's not say that, as a form of not getting pregnant. And this is true for a lot of people. Seth says, well, do you have any evidence of it? And I don't specifically know statistics off the top of my head, but I do know that is the case for many in many circumstances. Also, something that I want to say about this Bustle article is that, like, the arguments Seth is saying that pro-lifers use all the time, like, aren't arguments that, like, they aren't very good arguments. Like, he's rebutting against arguments that can be rebutted against. Like, these aren't arguments that pro-lifers would use. Like, this is a pro-choicer saying arguments that pro-lifers use, and it's not even accurate. Like, bro, Seth, my guy, at least use arguments that pro-lifers actually use. Like, these, and do you know why he's not? Do you know why he's not using the actual common arguments that pro-lifers use? Because he knows that he can't debunk them. Because there's nothing to debunk. Because the actual arguments that pro-lifers use are right. And that is that the baby is alive. It is scientifically completely correct to say that the baby is alive, right? How come when a pregnant woman, let's say, gets killed, I know it's a tad gruesome, but that the murderer is charged with double homicide? Okay, this is the logic. This is the logic that pro-choicers have. It is only a baby. It is only, because you throw baby showers. You don't throw clump of cell showers. Imagine that. Imagine hey, welcome, my clump of cells is on the way. Like, no, you don't do that, right? Pro-choicers' logic is that the baby is only a baby when they're wanted. Okay, when they're not wanted, then they're not a baby. When they're not wanted, then they're just a clump of cells. But if they are wanted, oh yeah, they're a baby. Okay, I would say this. I am as much a clump of cells as a baby within the womb is a clump of cells, okay? Yes, the baby relies on the mother. Okay, 2-year-olds also rely on the mother. There are, what about old people who have, what about veterans, right? Who have serious injuries, who are in the hospital, who rely on life support, right? Who rely on certain medications to keep them alive. Are you okay with killing them? Is this the logic that you're using here, Seth? Like, this is ridiculous. Seth goes, common argument number 7, abortions are dangerous. This is true, but this isn't a common argument for pro-lifers. Like, I am not against abortions because they are dangerous. I am against abortions because they are ending the life of a baby. I am against abortions because it is a legal mass genocide that is happening throughout our country. You want to hear a common argument of pro-choicers? It's, oh, well, if it's legal, it's okay. If it's legal, it's okay. It's legal, so what do you have against it, right? A lot of things in the history of the United States have been legal that were very morally wrong, okay? Slavery was legal. It was awful. But back then, if you were to say, oh, slavery is great because it's legal, no, it was terrible. It was absolutely morally wrong and horrible in every single way. So just because something is legal does not make it morally correct. Just like abortion. Just because it is legal does not make it morally correct. So, Seth, if you're going to use pro-life arguments, then actually provide some. Okay, common argument number 8. What if Winston Churchill or Martin Luther King had been aborted? That's another one. Like Justin Bieber, his mom was thinking about getting an abortion. His mom was considering it until she was encouraged to have the baby, and now look, we have Justin Bieber, right? So another argument that I always use, Seth, is what if you were aborted, right? You wouldn't like that, right? These babies aren't as privileged as you, don't have the luck that you have, right? Okay, so Seth says, are you saying abortion policy should be influenced by how good of a person a fetus ends up becoming? Okay, by how good of a person ends up becoming is what he's saying. No. What it should be is abortion policy should be influenced by the fact that it's a person. I don't really understand where you're going with this, Seth. You still aren't making any logical sense, and you're consistently contradicting your own argument. Like in common argument number 2, you literally said that the baby is reliant on the mother's body, on someone else's body, and you used an analogy to describe one body being reliant on another body. So they're two separate bodies. But then in a different argument, my body, my choice, it's not a separate body. So just pick one, Seth. Oh my gosh, like this doesn't make any sense. What we're saying is that baby has a life ahead of it. Right? He or she has a life ahead of them, whatever it may be. Yes, they may end up being a great person. They may end up not. We can always hope for the best because we're all called to be a saint by God, right? But are you saying that just because a mother does not want her baby after she's already made the choice and isn't willing to accept the consequences, that baby is okay? How would you have felt if your mother was experiencing that and if your mother killed you in the womb, right? You aren't as lucky. You are lucky. These babies are not as lucky as you and I to have a life. I'm stuttering on my words because I don't understand how anybody could be for abortion when literally scientifically the baby is alive in every way, shape, and form in the womb. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Common argument number 9. Many women who get abortions regret their decision later on. That is absolutely correct. Again, this isn't the number one argument I would use as to why I'm pro-life, but yes, that is very true. Look at Abby Johnson, right? It says the pro-choice argument. This is a pretty common argument. As with the shaming of teen moms, it pops up in Subway at... Whoa, okay, that's... okay, he says, this is a bad argument. Should the government ban people from doing things they sometimes regret? Okay, he is acting like the sole reason we're pro-life is because of this argument. Seth, are you okay? Like, I think Seth needs to be a little bit educated, okay? Because the thing is, he's acting like these arguments are the number one argument against abortion. Oh yeah, the number one argument is because some women regret it. Women do regret it, okay? You are right, Seth. People regret a lot of things. But there's a difference between, oh, I wish I hadn't spent $5 on that weird hat that I got, right? Between, oh, I wish I hadn't ended a life. Okay, wouldn't you say there's a pretty big difference between that, Seth? Like, that rebuttal doesn't make any logical sense overall when it comes to abortion. Okay, it says common argument number 10. Taxpayers shouldn't be forced to pay for things they find morally disagreeable. This is completely correct in every way. Seth says, by that rationale, Americans also shouldn't have a military, since that's funded by taxes, and many taxpayers find American foreign policy morally disagreeable. That is literally the dumbest rebuttal I have ever heard. Okay, Seth. The military is there to actually do something called protect us, and protect us against other countries, while abortion is ending the life of a human. So I think there's a bit of a difference there. It just... I apologize if I'm getting more heated than just your usual Kid Catholic video. Common argument number 11. This is what I just used, right? Let's see what Seth has to say about what I just used. This is interesting. It says, what if your mother had aborted you? Okay, Seth says, well, if I never came into existence in the first place, I probably wouldn't have any strong feelings on the matter. That is like the most insane thing I have ever heard. He says, anyway, I love my mother very much and respect her right to make whatever decisions are right for her body and life. Oh my gosh. Did he really just say that? He really just said, I probably wouldn't have any strong feelings on the matter. Are you kidding me? That is, So you're just okay if you had died when you were born. I don't know how old Seth is. Let's say Seth is 40. You were okay if you had died 40 years ago. That's just, oh my gosh. He says, so you respect your mother to kill you. Okay, even just the slogans of the pro-life movement versus the pro-choice movement in quotation marks. Even the slogans prove which one is right. Pro-life because we want everyone to live. including the lives of the unborn. Pro-choice because, oh, we want it to be able to choose to kill someone. That's what their slogan means, right? We want to be able to choose to kill someone. Quote unquote, my body, my choice, even when it's a completely separate human being, but I'm just going to ignore that scientifically. The reason pro-choicers, Seth is not getting into any specifics here, not getting into any moral specifics. The reason Seth isn't getting into specifics is because when pro-choicers get into specifics, their argument completely falls apart, right? Because their argument is irradical and doesn't make any sense. And that is is that the end? Yes, that is the end. He ends it with this. The best pro-choice arguments in summary. Let's see what you have to say about this, Seth. A right to life doesn't imply a right to use someone else's body to sustain a life. Again, this is the contradictory one I was talking about. A right to life, again, a 2-year-old relies on someone else's body to sustain their life. Yet a 2-year-old has a right to life, so that's awfully contradictory of you. Are you okay with just murdering a 2-year-old? Once again, that is absolutely just illogical of you to say that. He says women do not have a responsibility to have children, and certainly don't assume such a responsibility by virtue of deciding to, do something that gets you pregnant in the first place. Well, to that, I would say, correct, women do not have a responsibility to raise children. And he says, certainly don't assume such a responsibility when they do that. Okay, you should, because, again, in a lot of things in life, we get to choose what we do, but we don't get to choose the consequences, okay? Like, you can choose to do the crime, but you don't get to choose the jail time, right? That sort of thing, right? With doing something that genuinely gets you pregnant, you can choose to do that, but you don't get to choose the consequences. And the consequences of that are having a kid, whether you like it or not, because if you don't, then you're ending the kid's life, then you're just absolutely straight up murdering the kid, right? Because what about the abortion survivors? There are people out there today who survived abortions. Are you okay with looking them in the eye and saying it would have been perfectly great if you had been aborted all those years ago and you had actually died? Are you okay with saying that to them? Because that is immoral in every single way, but for some reason, pro-choicers are. For some reason, that's the pro-choice logic that we have going on. Okay, he says, outlawing abortion is very dangerous, both for women and their children. Seth, are you okay? Both for women and their children? That saves the life of the children, Seth. Are you not, processing this? Okay, it says, adoption still requires women to carry a baby to term and then give birth, both of which are also inherently dangerous. I don't know what you mean both, because you only mentioned one thing, so, clearly you're kind of losing your mind a little bit. But it says, adoption still requires women to carry a baby to term and then give birth. Correct, because she had the choice in the first place. She had the choice in the first place. And she chose to do it, so she needs to accept the consequence of choosing that, right? I mean, of course, that could be a very hard thing. I'm not saying that it's super easy to do that, right? Yes, that is difficult. But it is for the life of another human being who will go on to live a great life. Okay. And then it says, abortions, on the other hand, are quite safe. Not for the baby. Not for the baby, they're not. And then lastly, he says, banning abortion violates a woman's right to control her own body. Okay, so up there you said that the baby's body relies on someone else's body, but down here you said that it's her own body. So once again, I'm confused as to where you stand, Seth. But it says abortion violates a woman's right to control her own body. It's not her own body. You hear my body, my choice in quotation marks. You hear that everywhere, right? It is not her own body. It is scientifically, in every way, someone else's body. It is scientifically, in every single way, the baby's body inside of that womb. It is not hers, okay? And she has to accept the consequences of having that baby, because if she didn't, then that baby would die in the womb. And I just don't understand how anyone can be morally okay with that. So that's what I have to say about this bustle.com argument, because what Seth Milstein fails to acknowledge is the actual logistics when it comes to abortion, the actual moral specifics. And he doesn't acknowledge the real pro-life arguments that are used, because he says 11 arguments against abortion debunked. Like, these aren't the most common arguments that you see pro-lifers use. These aren't the main ones, oh, it's a baby, don't kill it. He's like, well, financially, abortions are it is a human life inside of that womb. So Seth Milstein, if you're going to write an article debunking, quote unquote, I don't know why I'm saying quote unquote when I'm literally doing it, debunking the pro-life argument, then how about you actually use arguments that pro-lifers actually use? I think we should all pray for the unborn, all pray for those who are not as lucky as us to get to see their life, because their life was ended all so young. For these holy innocents, let's pray for them. Let's pray day in and day out for them, and let's pray for the end of the mass genocide that is abortion. Now, this was like a 20-minute Kid Catholic video, so I'm going to cut it here without the saying of the week for this week. For those of you who watched until now, before you click off this video, really quickly, I want to say, if you could please do me like a huge favor, and please click the red subscribe button down below, and the bell next to it, that way you get notified when I come out with a new video. Please share this channel, share this video with your friends and family, make sure that they know about Kid Catholic. Please check out 3 of my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The link to all 3 of those will be in the description and in the comments below. Also, comment any saint or topic suggestions that you might have. Please go to my website, kidcatholic.com. You can read about me, you can contact me. All of my videos are up there. You can read about me, all of that. So, once again, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all next week, and hi, Brielle.